The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game, a show about short video games, the kind of games that respect your precious time. I'm your host, Shane Kelly, and I'm joined here by a bevy of beautiful beings.
Nate Heininger.
Laura Nash.
And Raygan Kelly.
Very flattered, Shane. Thank you very much for the beautiful introduction. Much more complimentary than when Raygan introduces us.
Well, the assonance is what worked for me, or the the alliteration. A bevy of beautiful beings is very good.
And the show today is mine. I'm doing the introductions, not you, Raygan. How many episodes have you introduced?
A lot.
I've seized the means of podcast production.
Yeah, listeners will probably hear in my voice that I'm a little off this week. I've been kind of sick, so I won't be talking very much.
And let's not fool anyone here. You have seized the means of podcast hosting. Reagan's still going to do all the production
work. Just because he's sick doesn't mean we don't make him do all of the editing.
Yes.
Thank you, right. Raygan.
Thank you, Raygan.
You're all welcome.
And this is a classic case in this episode of I got really excited because someone told me a game was short, and it was not. But I still loved it, made all of you play it, and now we're here to talk about it. How many times has that happened? I think it reminds me of Hyper Light Drifter when that happened.
Yeah, well, we like to pretend that we have a, we talk about our roguelike exception, a lot to fit games like this in here into the show. Even though it's our show and we don't actually have any rules to follow, we like to try to fit some sort of thesis. And I have to say, I love this game, but this one is stretching it even further than I think we've ever stretched it. Even for a roguelike, this game has, like, an individual playthrough is very, very long. So I think we all really, really enjoyed this game, and we're going to spend some time talking about it. But the amount of time you have to commit to it to, really play through it.
I will say, though, it's not...
The game is...
Oh, yeah.
The game is Griftlands. The game is Griftlands.
I thought one of you would mention it, and I was doing a lot of hand-waving on the Zoom.
We're jumping in.
The game is Griftlands.
Is this going to be my thing when I host the show?
Don't ever say the name
never get around to talking about the game at all?
Everyone reads the title of the podcast.
No. Our historic exception to these roguelike games did kind of also lead to giving this game a chance. Theoretically, you can finish a run of Griftlands in 8 hours, but your first run isn't going to work because it has that roguelike element. So unless to get there,
unless you're Nate.
I said unless you're Nate.
I wasn't going to say it, but yes, I won my first round.
But let's talk about what is this game. This is a really interesting merger of RPG, storytelling, and progression with the mechanics of a deck-building card game. So you've got your Slay the Spire style battling, and you also have really a double deck. It is a double-decker game, where the second deck is a battle it out with your Battle of Wits kind of deck, where you do negotiations or intimidating people, things like that. And then on top of that is this entire layer cake of a visual novel / kind of evolving multi-day, multi-character narrative that also has a whole reputation system thing built into it that has an effect. So it's just a mechanically super dense piece of... If this were if the mechanics here were candy, it would be just a super dense fudge. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this game? Is it fudgy?
It's certainly fudgy. I think there are a lot of very transparent mechanics out of the gate, but it is softened for me, a person who is not... I like a deck builder, but I tend to play more of the the tabletop deck builders. I don't tend to play very long-term deck building games. And so I need a little bit of narrative to help it go down. And I was very happy that the narrative was fun, entertaining, characters of personality. And I was a little overwhelmed at first by the number of different systems, because the game really wanted me to know all of the systems existed at the beginning. And that was very surprising for me. You mentioned relationships, negotiations, battles, reputation, that reputation system, money, and deck building. All of that is introduced within the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, this game is super dense. I was thinking parfait, not fudge, but maybe like a fudge parfait. A lot of layers. But Laura, your point is definitely spot on in that, like, I think this is a narrative game with a deck building element and not a deck building game with a narrative element, if that makes sense. I think the story and the procedural generated element of the story and the reputation system and the dialogue choices that you make along the way are really what this game is trying to get across. And then the deck building, which is crucial, it's a critical part. I mean, you're going to be doing it constantly, is still like the means for producing the story rather than the other way around. And I think that's really interesting.
Deck building is personality building. It's not as much of a personality builder as Signs of the Sojourner, which I'll talk about more later, but the cards you take are shaping the way you act in the world much more than just straightforward mechanics.
Well, so I think, to put it a little more directly, basically, there are multiple characters that you can play from, and every character has their own story arc, and they all take place in the same world. But essentially, you're going to be sent on a number of small quests that are building up that have you meeting new people, introducing yourself to new people, and moving along through these various quest lines. And constantly throughout the quest lines, you'll have the choice to basically either try to talk your way through something or fight your way through something. And that's not that uncommon in video games at this point. But in this case, if you choose to talk your way through something, you're using your negotiation deck, and you have your own sort of hit points for your ability to negotiate. And then you have your fighting deck.
Yeah, your
battle,
resolve, right?
Yeah, resolve is your negotiation hit points.
If you run out of resolve, you can't negotiate anymore.
Right. All you can do is fight.
You die.
Yeah. So fighting is always the last resort.
The whole story over.
Yeah.
And by the end of my first run, I ran out of resolve points in the last day and just like basically fought my way to the end. But even fighting has a decision point, because everything that you fight has a surrender moment, and you as a character, and usually, unless you accidentally, which I did a couple times, usually you can basically like pull back and not kill and allow somebody to surrender, which is also a story point and a reputation moment. And every time you decide, am I going to fight someone or am I going to talk to them? If I fight him, am I going to kill him? Like, all of these impact the story and impact the world's perception of you, that reputation system. And it's this like crazy balance of all of these things. And you're constantly put into these situations where it's like, should I try to talk my way through this? Well, that's a balance of how many resolve points do I have? What's my current relationship with these people? And what's the potential outcome of me talking my way through it? Or should I try to fight them? And if I try to fight them, do I have enough health to manage the fight? Do I kill them or not? And if either way, like, who's going to hate me if I kill them? Because it matters. It's like one of the only games that I've played that actually manages to do a thing where people don't like you and it impacts you. Like, you don't want people not to like you, but it might be a necessity. There was this choice that I had, and I think this is a good representation of this game, where you get a skill upgrade, And one of the choices for the skill upgrade is you get one additional action per turn, which is huge. In any sort of deck building game, like the ability to play an extra card per turn is a massive improvement. In Slay the Spire, that's like boss relics and stuff give you that. In this, there's always a trade-off to it. So you get one more action. In this, the trade-off was 2 random people will hate you. And it was truly, that was a difficult decision. Every other game that has like a reputation system made me, you're like, yeah, whatever. I don't care if people don't like me. But with this game where your reputation and how you have handled yourself actually impact your ability to do things on the line, it's like, that's crazy that there's a battle system that has a reputation element that like actually made me pause and say like, oh, I don't want people to hate me. Now, of course, I did ultimately make that decision because, whatever. But
yeah, I think what's really cool about this is that like, while the Griftlands, the area that you're, bumming around in, it feels very lively. It's full of characters. And it does this, we can talk a little bit more about this, I think later, but like it does this procedural narrative where like, you're going to encounter these characters usually multiple times, and you never know if the character that hates you is going to show up in one of these stories, so it keeps track like, okay, here's a list of all the characters that hate you. Well, maybe in one of the quests that you're going to get, even if it's your 10th run, maybe one of those characters is going to show up in a particular way in a particular quest, and you're going to be completely blocked from negotiating with them. Or maybe you fight them and they fight extra hard because they hate you. Mm-hmm. So that reputation system really plays into the procedural narrative. It's really, really cool. I mean, I thought that was like one of my favorite things about it is like you see these characters standing around in bars. You encounter them in shops, and you encounter them in all sorts of like little mini quest stuff out in the world, and how they feel about you. If you bought them a drink last night, they might give you a discount in their shop or help you if there's a fight. If they hate you, maybe you turned them into the cops or something like that, then they're going to be very, you're going to be very hard to negotiate with them, that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool.
And I really appreciated the transparency. They call it the boon and bane system, where if someone loves you, you can move a character from like to love. And once they move to love, you get a benefit. You get the discount at the store. You get cards. You get presents. You get favors. And similarly, there's a dislike and a hate, and the hate is associated with a bane state. So I really enjoyed the threat of knowing the bane system existed, that once something moved to hate, there was not only a character repercussion, but a game repercussion. I accidentally ran around afoul of the cult. Basically, I pissed off an entire religion. Oopsies. Everybody hated me from the religion, and I had a very tough time on day 2 when I had to steal a religious artifact, and they did not like that I had already pissed off multiple members of their cult. Again, big whoopsies.
It is a personal life goal of my own, though, to someday have an entire religion that hates me. So it's nice that I can do it in this game.
Accomplished. But I will say the negotiation and combat were more alike than I anticipated, though. This reputation feels very much like a thing in D&D. Like it feels like a feature of a system. And similarly, the negotiation and combat felt a lot more similar, where the negotiation was a different deck. It also took damage, less so than the games you've played where they're trying to simulate conversation through the negotiation.
Yeah.
Although there are, you've threatened someone with a threaten card, you will peel a little threat over the line. I don't know, over the combat field.
It's an interesting. That's something that stood out to me too. Is that like this game, makes a big deal about having like your negotiation deck and your battle deck, and it's a really cool idea. As Shane said, who doesn't love a double decker? And I don't know of any other deck building game where you're
or negotiation game. Like,
they're not
combined often.
it's cool that you, and like you're constantly getting choices of like, do I upgrade my negotiation deck? Do I upgrade my battle deck? Like right now, I'm playing through my second run through with a different character, and I was like, I ended up the last game I played with a lot of people hating me, and by the end, I was really burdened by a lot of these Banes. So the second run, I'm like, I'm gonna try to play this as like amicably as possible. I want people to like me, so that means basically negotiate more. So I'm making a lot more negotiation deck upgrades and focusing on my negotiation deck more than my battle deck as much as possible. But to your point, like it really is just two like combat systems, and with the negotiation deck, instead of saying things like stab, it's saying things like
threaten.
Threaten or logical fallacy or like straw man or like you know, like these like sort of debate and discussion words. And the mechanics are totally different. You have this whole system where you're like managing arguments and things like that. So it is a different system, but it doesn't really feel like you're like going verbally toe to toe with someone. It just feels like you're managing a different.
I don't know. I have something to say about this.
It feels like two different combat systems to me.
It does feel like two different combat systems because it is two different combat systems. And I've played now a fair number of these kinds of games. And I play a lot of Magic. Now I get to ring the bell because I'm talking about Magic on the show.
Ding,
My cool sword guys.
Yeah.
So what the challenge there really is making a resonant playing card within the mechanics, right? And you brought up like straw man. Like the idea when we just say it like, hey, you're fighting by making like a straw man sounds kind of silly, but when the way that these cards are designed, something like that is actually, it works well. I thought it was a good design. It's what is a straw man argument? It's a fake argument that you're putting up of your opponents to attack. And that's like exactly what you do with the straw man card in this game.
Yeah.
And a lot of the designs are like that. It's really, I thought the negotiation deck, I didn't get to play Signs of the Sojourner, but I know that was very heavily based around like finding a common language with others. This is not that. This is about like one-upping your opponent's arguments.
This is Debate Society.
I thought the design was really good. Yeah, it's the Debate Society card game.
Yeah, saying that they're both just, combat systems is like true, but also it does slight the fact that like I think the negotiation deck in this was significantly more fun and interesting than the combat stuff. Like, and maybe other folks feel differently, but like
definitely more.
I really doubled down on the negotiation side because it was so interesting to play. We can talk about the specific mechanics in more detail, but like the thing that really stuck out to me about it is that on both sides, when you're playing these negotiations, you have your core argument, which could be something like, my core argument might be represented by like, I don't want to pay a bribe, and your core argument might be, but you should pay that bribe. And then, you're trying to like reduce the resolve of each other's core argument. But you're constantly adding and taking away other arguments. So it feels kind of like you're, so like, for example, I really, my negotiation deck when I was playing really built around the influence argument or mechanic where, I had several cards that could create influence, which was like, theoretically, meant like, the sort of command of the conversation or something like that. Right. But what it really means was like, influence is an argument that goes onto my board that is separate from my core argument. It can be targeted with attacks. So somebody can argue against my influence. But I can also defend it in the same way I can defend my core argument. And, it has effects on other cards. So you might have cards that spend that influence or that have special abilities that are activated if you have a certain amount of influence, like, does extra damage by multiplied by the amount of influence you have. And you can build around that stuff. And you can see your opponent's arguments and you can target their core argument or their like little side arguments that might be prevent, or you can even incept arguments to them. So like a big part of my deck was like, I forget what it was called. There was like a type of argument called wanted, I think. And you could give them that argument and then destroy it, and it would cause damage to their core argument, things like that. So it became a really interesting system, much, much more interesting than what I thought was like a totally serviceable and fine combat card mechanic, but it didn't seem like anything that like I hadn't seen before somewhere else. This was new. I really liked this part of the game a lot.
I think my disappointment in it was that I perpetually had analogies for combat with my negotiation deck. Mm-hmm. For example, I was seeing composure as defense. I was seeing resolve as health. When I played, a straw man, I was thinking drone. And so this might just be a mental model of the game, and maybe it's a fallacy in me, but I wish I wasn't able to find analogies for all of my cards in a combat system I was familiar with. It felt like a novel combat system, but it felt like I was using synonyms for a combat system I'd played before.
It does ultimately feel combat-y, but it's combative dialogue.
Which I was a little disappointed by, to be honest.
I get that. I still found it really interesting. Like, it didn't 100% feel like a conversation, like the way that, you brought up Signs of the Sojourner. Signs of the Sojourner felt so much like a conversation.
That wasn't the goal of this, but I just wish I had a few cards stretch my ability to come up with one-to-one comparisons.
Yeah, and so I agree with Laura, but I also, all this to say, like, Raygan, I agree with you. I think the negotiation deck was far more compelling and interesting from a gameplay standpoint, and I really enjoy it. And to me, I don't want to do too many comparisons to Slay the Spire, but like the battle deck is like the Ironclad, and the negotiation deck is like the Defect, which is just like a far more complicated, far more complex. Like, there's a lot of management to it. There's a lot of like different strategies, whereas Ironclad is more just like hit hard and try to win. Now that said, as the game progresses and you start to unlock, this game has a ton of unlocks. Most of us only made it through 1 to 2 runs, but this game really wants you to run these characters over and over and over. And there are a lot of cards and a lot of systems that unlock as you play more and more. So our discussion of this game, I think we've all only scratched the surface of the complexity of both the negotiation and the battle combat. Because when I completed my first run, you have experience for your character, and my win leveled my character up like 5 times, and I unlocked like 20 new cards, and all of the new cards were like bundled in these packages of like the Adept, and it's like 4 cards that are like a whole new system that you now have, and then the next one was like the Recon or whatever, and it's like 4 cards that are a whole new system that that was not in play the first time. So it gets continuously more and more deep and more complex, and there's a whole perk system too that like you can change your character. It's pretty crazy. But anyway, to go back to the original point, like I like, the systems are what you spend the most time thinking about in playing with. But it's still the crazy thing to me is that like the deck building does feel secondary to the world and the generation of the world, and like your choices as you go along the quest that you're on. And I think that's one of the biggest accomplishments of this game. It kind of reminded me, how Supergiant, they made Hades and they made Pyre, and it's like they have found ways to take these systems and like make them narrative games with like the system underneath it. Like Hades managed to make like a dungeon crawling roguelike, like this wonderful story about the Greek gods, and like that's what everyone was talking about when that game came out, even though like underneath it is this incredibly complex and dense world or mechanics and like combat system. But really everyone was talking about like how horny like everyone is, like I think if that's what Griftlands is to me, is that like, yeah, there's this insane deck building mechanic, and there's 2 decks, which is crazy, and all of this, but really like what you're playing.
It's a story game.
Yeah, it's a story game, and I think that's really cool.
This is what really kept me going with it, and it was not what I expected. So like when I had been hearing about this game, I heard it was like an RPG or whatever, but I also was hearing, it's a deck building game. And I was like, okay, Nate game, right? Okay, this is going to be, and deck building games, like I enjoy them, but they're not really my zone, especially not deck building roguelikes. Which
deck building Nate, roguelike Shane. It's like,
yeah, I enjoyed Slay the Spire, but it's not really my area. But this game, the thing that really surprised me about it was how compelling the setting and characters were, and what a good job it does of allowing for inviting you to experience this story and this world multiple times while still being interesting. If you don't mind, I can go ahead and do a little bit of an intro on just sort of the world of Griftlands, which I thought was really interesting, but feel free to jump in if you guys have, because backstory here, like I played through, this game is arranged in days, each run is like a 5-day period, right? And there's sort of a big boss or encounter at the end of each day. So story-wise, I won't be spoiling anything here because I played through day 1, day 2, died. Played through day 2 again, died. Had to restart again. Played through day 1, day 2, managed to get through, and that's where I've stopped. That was about 5.5 hours, and that's all I've had time for. So far, I've been replaying those first 2 days a lot. But anyway, World of Griftlands was very interesting. It's, the Griftlands is this zone of this particularly sort of like undeveloped continent. It's overseen by an admiralty that's sort of like a foreign invading or occupying force, basically. So like there's not really a government as such, more just sort of like the cops are also invaders. And the Griftlands has, I guess, 3 main factions. There's the admiralty, the sort of invading police force, what were they called? The something with an S,
The Spree.
Bandits. The Spree,
Yeah.
which is a sort of
Good
a
name.
league of bandits. Yeah. And then there's the cult of Hesh, which is sort of like the local religion of like a weird chthonic god. And there's a sort of an uneasy truce between them. You start, you're when you boot up the game, there are multiple characters that you can play through, which each has their own story. I really only encountered the first one.
Yeah, each character is unlocked when you finish the first day with the previous character. So you can unlock, and you can get through day 1 with most of them pretty quick. So if you wanted to, you could unlock all the characters in this very quickly.
And there's each character introduces an expansion of the location. So everything Raygan just explained is the first character. And in that first game, you learn about a sort of a nearby land called the Bog that is ran by the Spark Barons, which are basically like a merchant slave owning class, and they're a small part of the first character's world, but they are the center point of the second character's world. And so
you can kind of get the sense that this game was in early access for 2 years, and it really kind of feels like it's been like added on to extensively, not just with new cards and improved mechanics, but like new stories and characters to play as. I can only speak to the first character, but I think it's probably what we probably want to stick to for spoiler reasons anyway. And so the main character that you boot up the game as is Sal Ikderic. An interesting sort of world building note that I thought was interesting was Ikderic was not her original last name. Her family went into a sort of a debtor's prison kind of thing. This is her whole sort of motivation is getting revenge on the person who kind of screwed her family over and sent them all out to die on the Derrick, which is a place where people, like an oil derrick type of thing where people mine something called lumen. And she spent the last 10 years, her entire childhood there. And I think her whole family died there. And she has come back to the Griftlands to get revenge on Cassio, a character that sort of was a minor mobster, I guess, who screwed your family over and sent them all out to die on the Derrick. And the bit about the Ikderic thing, when you get consigned to the Derrick, they take away your name, and you, even after you've paid off your debt and left, you're still an Ick Derrick as the last name. Anyway,
that's the style.
Yeah. So that's the basic plot, is like you are recently returned to your shitty homeland, and you want to get revenge, but you're coming in friendless and penniless, and you need to make connections in order to put yourself in a position where you can get your revenge. And I really like that setup, and I thought the world was really interesting. We haven't talked about the art either. Just to briefly say, like, it has the look of like a cool cartoon. Like, it's got a very, I don't know, how would you describe this? It looks sort of like a well-produced American cartoon style that I also really drew me in. It felt like an adventure story kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's also kind of mimicking the kind of classic style of Monkey Island and stuff like that. I don't know. But in a cooler way, like in a very modern way. It does look more like a modern kids cartoon. It has that visual novel style, too, where most of the storytelling is done with backgrounds that are, many of them really cool, but then just characters kind of in place around the background. And each of the characters, it's not fully voiced. They probably have way too much text in this game to fully voice it, but they do the sort of Simlish style dialogue where they have kind of a made up language and they're doing some real emoting. And I will say, did great illustration for a lot of the different scenarios. So like the tone and the gestures of the characters really come through.
Yeah, it's funny that it's all that like Simlish language. I thought the same thing, but that it is still tied to the moment. So if you have made them mad, they are making sim sounds, but very angry sim sounds. And the little character on the screen, or really the big character, it's, your character is one half the screen, whoever you're talking to is the other half of the screen, and there's a background, and it's not fully animated, but their mouths are moving, their body is changing, and all of the characters are very uniquely designed. There's a lot of different races in this game, mostly broken down along the lines that Raygan talked about before. But they're all individually designed, and you can actually start to recognize characters just off of their character design, not just their name. And it's really cool because those characters, you might see them in a bar at one point, and then you run into them later. There's like an overworld that is really dense, almost dense to the degree that it's like kind of hard to tell exactly what is happening in this little, at least playing on the Switch, handheld Switch. There's like a lot going on in this dense overworld, and your little character moves. You'll be like, I'm at my home bar, and I'm going to go to this shop, and you click on the shop, and your character moves, and there's like Pokemon style, encounters where you're like, I just want to go to point B, but I've been stopped in between by a thing. Mm-hmm. And it'll be all characters that exist in the world. And, it got to the point where I'm like, oh, God, it's Dory again. Come on, Dory. Like, leave me alone. And then you let Dory beat you up because you don't want to fight her. And you want her to feel good about herself. So you just let her beat you up. You lose 11 HP and you move on. And I just thought the character design and all that was really good. And the writing, the character dialogue is really good. And the every character has a pretty dense background, and it just kind of depends on on the paths that you took, the storyline that you follow, the threads that you pull, whether you'll learn someone's background. Like on multiple playthroughs, character A may be your chief ally, who is like a center point of your ascension to getting your revenge. And on playthrough number 2, that may be someone you kill in the first like 20 minutes because you chose a different quest. It's pretty cool. There's actually the first character you interact with is a button you can press to inspect the character. And you can inspect every character, and you can actually see what you get if you kill them. They won't show you the Bane or the boon if they like you, but they'll show you what their death loot is. And that was a really like key discovery to me early on when I like inspected the chief like quest giver, your best friend in this game, the bartender. And it was like what you get if you kill them. I'm like, how and why would I ever kill this person? And then after a couple hours of playing, it's like, well, there might be a chance where like I get myself into like a weird situation and my only way out is to kill this person. And at least I know I'll get that card if I have to do it.
Like, at least I'll get a benefit from killing my best friend. And that kind of summarizes the whole tone of this game. And that's what I found really enjoyable is it's called Griftlands, and you are a bit of a hustler. Like, you're a hunter is what they call it, but like there's some conning. You always have the opportunity to backstab, betray.
Yeah, look out for number one. There was a time, so I said it earlier, I had a lot of banes. A lot of people hated me.
Yeah.
And I figured out, like, if they hate you, they are also likely to fight you. And often not, and you can set it up to where, like, you just provoke them to fight you. And if they are dead, then they no longer hate you. And so you lose the bane. And so there was a little moment in this game where what I was doing was going around. I went all in on like evil. Normally these games, I'm like, I'm going to be, I want to be friends. But the way the story was going, it was working out for me to just be killing a lot of people. But I had so many banes that I was going around like bar to bar to bar, trying to find these people that hated me, get into a conversation with them, provoke them to attack me, and then I could kill them, and I'd no longer have that bane. Now, the downside to that is that a lot of characters have friends,
and then they kill them because you killed your friend.
Yeah, so you have to like, it ended up not really being as effective as I thought. I was like, okay, I'll just kill everyone that hates me, and everyone that's left in this world will love me. I was like, okay, the game is smarter.
That's definitely how that's going to work, right?
That's the approach I take in real life too. And so I thought, this game it worked for me in real life. It'll work for me in this game. But I eventually had to abandon that strategy it compounds. I'm like, oh God, what have I become? And I was able to, get off of that track and still manage to make it to the end. But, the fact that like that was even like an option, like a play style was pretty great.
But since I didn't get as far as you said, oh no, what have I become? That was you making the judgment, not the game, correct? The game never has an ethics component, correct?
No. And now on my second run with the second character, I'm trying to be way more thoughtful about the way battle goes. And also, there was a bleed mechanic. It's a damage over time on the that I used a lot in combat with my first character. And the Switch is like a real small screen. And I don't know, between that and like my own just being dumb, there were a couple times where I killed people that I didn't mean to kill. And that like got this sort of snowball avalanche thing of like me killing people and then them hating me and then me needing to kill more people because they all hate me. So I didn't, it was a little bit of a learning curve with the game too. But besides, it was all either my own choice or my own mistake that led to everyone hating me. And on this second playthrough, I've been way more about negotiation, killing less people, and I have way less of these banes and way more boons. And I'm not as far into it, so I assume that I'm going to have to start murdering people at some point. But so far, I've been able to manage it differently.
I did at one point have a bane that basically I killed one random bandit and it basically shut off my deck and I had to rebuild the deck in a different direction because I was relying on a card that would multiply out. You could play it and it cost nothing to play and you could play it and add lots of copies of it to your deck because it would duplicate itself in the discard pile, which is a cool mechanic.
Nice.
And the bane I got basically said everything that made it so that everything that cost 0 instead cost 1. and it just made the deck completely suck.
Yeah.
Because it was just junking itself up. And so I had to stop playing that card entirely and go in a different direction. I thought that was really neat. It made me really rethink the deck. And this was the run that I still ultimately got all the way to the boss with Sal, and then died in the final encounter. But yeah, it was a really cool path through the game, and the way that the social interactions act kind of as it's almost as though your character has 2 health bars, if that makes... You literally do, because you have the resolve, but being able to push through, like knowing just how far you can push yourself with the resolve, and still be in fighting form to face the final boss, which is going to be, live or die. That's really neat. The way that actually feels as a structure maps up so well to the story that they've told. It really does all tie together so well.
Yeah, well, and it kind of emulates what I imagine, someone who lives a life like this would actually have, which is you're going to try to talk, if you're a grifter, if you're like this sort of, someone who walks the world just trying to get ahead, like you're probably going to go in and try to talk your way through things first. And then when that falls through, you're going to fight if you have to. And so I like that mechanic that, like, if you reduce to 0 resolve in an argument, all that happens is that it just, you can't
argue anymore.
You can't argue anymore, but you still have the option to fight. And you pretty much always have the chance to just beat someone to the surrender point. And then they will do what you had tried to argue for. Or you can kill them, and there'll be, some repercussion from that, whether it's you fail the quest that you were on, or it just alters the quest. I had one that in the first one where I accidentally killed the person that I was supposed to, have as an integral part of the whole quest, and I just failed the quest. They're like, "Why'd you kill them?" And the character's like, things got out of hand. It's like, cool, quest failed. Like, great. Sweet. That was fun. But it's this constant balance of those things.
This is a game I think we all liked a lot, right? So it was also kind of a big, it's like the cookies and cream ice cream of games. It's like a whole bunch of different weird ingredients all thrown together, and it's all delicious. Wait.
That is your example for cookies and cream is like a
cookies. What is it? It's the Ben and Jerry's, the everything but the kitchen
together.
sink or whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Like ice cream is crazy.
You know what they put in cookies and cream ice cream? Ice and cream.
Oh man, I'm called out on my ice cream opinions. It's because I just ate some cookies and cream ice cream.
But you know what?
Literally this has been
for dinner,
what we've been eating segment.
But Shane, I will say though, because this is what I thought you were going to say. Cookies and cream is my favorite ice cream, and this game is flying up my list of one of my favorite games. I really enjoyed this game, and I'm continuing to enjoy it. And I think it has it clicks a lot of buttons for me. I did not expect to have a deck building roguelike that actually has a compelling narrative in it. All of these roguelikes and deck building games that we're used to are all so one and done. I mean, that's like the whole thing of them. It's almost impossible to create a compelling story where everything shuffles and starts over and starts over and starts over. And this game manages to do that so well. I want to play more of it, more for the story really than the deck building component, which is crazy to me because that's something that I love so much, but also because they have, like I said it earlier, but the deck building stuff is dense, and they sort of dole it out as you play more and play more. So I'm really interested to see, like, what are the new cards that are added? What are the new strategies? And how can I take Sal or Rook or and I got to say this before spoilers. Shane, you pointed it out, and I can't get it out of my head. The second character looks like really buff Raygan, and it's so funny. It's so funny. So
excuse me, I am really buff.
Yeah, somehow buffer. If you can imagine, if you can possibly imagine a more buff Raygan, that's what the second character looks like. I know I couldn't picture it either. So just the second character's name is Rook.
Do I need to buy some weird goggles? Is that what you're telling me?
He doesn't have goggles on, does he?
Aren't those goggles on the top of his head?
Oh, on top. Okay, yeah. He's a aviator. Like an aeronaut, I think they call him.
Yeah, it looks like that kind of vibe. I don't see it, guys. He has a mustache. I think that's where it ends.
It's the jawline, honestly. It's the shape of the head and the jawline.
Yeah, it looks like you.
It's if you were to block
I'm not
you
changing my Twitter icon to this guy is what I'm saying, because it doesn't. I don't see it, but I'm glad that you guys think. I don't know. I don't know if this is a positive or negative, but
I think it's a compliment. This game has so much to offer. We didn't even, if it's not clear, the writing is fantastic. This game is so well written and funny at times, and compelling and dark and sad and all the different things that like a world where everything sucks for everyone is gonna bring you. So I really enjoy this game, and I'm glad that I didn't participate in early access for this game, because like the package that's been presented to us now with like everything, it's awesome to be able to bring it all in, and it's not a short game at all.
Not that short.
I've put more hours into Slay the Spire, and I still think Slay the Spire is a short game compared to this. This is like,
oh, wow, I don't know about that, but yeah, there's a lot to this.
Slay the Spire you can finish in. There's a achievement for like beating a run in under 20 minutes. This game, this first run took me 8 hours to win, and I don't see how you could do it I bet you could do it in 6 or something like that. Like Slay the Spire
through dialogue. Yeah. I do think that it's designed around fewer total runs than something like Slay the Spire. Like, sure. I don't think this is expecting you to do 100 runs. I think it's expecting you to, run each character till you win, and probably most people can do that in, I don't know, a handful of tries. But you're right, it's definitely a long one.
Yeah, the how long to beat time on it is partially what made me think this was going to be shorter than it turned out to be. It says main story 9.5 hours. Main story plus extras 14 hours, and completionist 21 hours. And I think you might as well just see that as like one character, two characters, 3 characters. Mm-hmm. But that said, like, you can, I think, experience this game and have like a plenty of fun in a short amount of time and get a complete story. I really like the fact that they have these 3 characters. Pretty quickly you have access to all of them, and each one of them is a sort of self-contained story that overlaps if you want to experience more than one of them.
I want to give a big plus to the easy mode on this game. Do not feel ashamed to use. So, I told you earlier, my experience with this was like I played through day 1, day 2, died to the assassin that happens at the end of day 2. That it makes you then play a whole day again, played the whole day again, thinking like, well, okay, I'm going to tweak my deck a little bit, try that assassin again. Exact same thing happened to me. And I was like, oh, well, am I going to, start again from the scratch and, do day 1, day 2 again and die to that assassin? So I thought, well, let's switch to the easy mode. I usually don't do that in games like this. They call it actually the story mode. The story mode for folks that just care about the story, right? And so I thought, oh no, is it just going to like make all of the deck building super, super easy and trivial, and is that going to feel really uninteresting? So I was worried that this game relies so much on the deck building and combat and everything being engaging. It really still was, even on quote unquote story difficulty. I don't think I actually failed anything playing through on story difficulty, but it still felt like I could, and it had for me at least, it had all of the same vibe and felt just as interesting. So if you're not like huge into the mechanics of deck building roguelikes, or either of those two genres independently, and you just want to experience this game's story, it really is here for you for that. And the card mechanics feel just like a good RPG battle system that will let you carry you through that story, and you don't have to grind out multiple runs necessarily in order to experience that story. Maybe you have to replay a day or two here or there, but if you just want to get through the story of this game, the story difficulty, give it a go. I give it my thumbs up.
For me, I enjoy the mechanics, but I'm here for the vibes.
Yeah, very cool vibes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about all we have to say on this one. But stick around maybe at the end. Nate and I both got to the final boss on Sal's story. I kind of wanted to talk about that, so we might do that if we feel like it, once we finish talking about those incredible things that are making us happy this week. I always like to do this segment because this is the segment that is about what's making us happy this week. And if we think back on the week, and we think on a thing that makes us smile, that's the thing that's making us happy this week. So the name of the segment that I'm introducing is What's Making Us Happy This Week?
What are you doing?
Raygan, what's making you happy this week?
Not that intro. Every time I let you intro anything on this show, you turn it into a who's on first bit. This is a really small one. I picked up my 3DSs again. So I've a lot of different
plural?
Various, yes, yeah, I have a lot lot different various consoles and stuff.
He two-hands it. It's called 6DS.
Yeah, I collect a lot of different consoles and stuff. I'm into video game hardware. This is just sort of my thing. And just recently there was a sale on Nintendo has a actually, if you're not aware, Nintendo has a really good website for refurbished consoles. So if you've got, if you're interested in picking up like a Switch Lite or something and you're looking for a deal, and you don't want to buy like, somebody's used Switch that who knows what they did with it. Nintendo has good prices on good quality refurbished stuff that I've ordered a bunch of these of various types, and they're all identical to brand new. They come in a nice box with a charger. Everything's nice. The screens are perfect. So, thumbs up to that. And so over the last couple of weeks, they suddenly started having 3DSs or various models of the 3DS on their refurb store again, which they haven't for a while. And so I decided to pick up some of the models of 3DS that I hadn't played with before. So I got a 2DS and I got a 2DS XL because they were both very cheap. And those are both really interesting little models. The 2DS has that really weird design that's shaped sort of like a wedge and has no fold. And then the 2DS XL has
a doorstop of a console.
It is. It's a very strange little device. And it was their sort of like cost-cutting version of the 3DS that has no 3D capable screen. And actually the 2DS, they cut the cost so much that rather than have two screens, they have one screen internally with a little frame over the top. So everything's displayed on one screen, but you get these little cutout windows so that you see the two different, top and bottom screens, which I thought was a very strange but interesting little cost-cutting measure designed for probably kids and stuff. But the 2DS XL, or rather the new 2DS XL, which is the final model in the 3DS family, I picked up one of those in purple, which is a great color for these things. I love it. And it's really, really nice. And it's got me playing some 3DS games that I've had sitting on my shelf and never got around to playing. So I guess what's specifically making me happy this week was picking up a 3DS again at all, and specifically the 2DS XL in purple, which is really cute, and I love it. I just love the design of this thing. It doesn't have the 3D screen, but like it's smaller than the regular 3DS XL. It's got the quote-unquote new 3DS, model features and stuff, like the extra like thumbsticky thing. It's lightweight, it's easy to carry, and it's purple. And I'm playing a couple things on it. I'm playing Kirby Planet Robobot, which is a game that I bought and only ever played a couple levels of, and now I'm actually giving it a shot, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And I'm also playing. This is another sidetrack. Sorry. We have a poll running on our Patreon for what game to cover out of. We have a backlog, a long list of games that have kind of built up that we haven't gotten around to playing yet. And I wanted to kind of sweep that out, so I'm letting the patrons vote. If you're a patron and you haven't seen that, you may have gotten an email, or you can just go to the Patreon page and you can vote. But currently, the top voted item on there is Metroid Fusion. So I'm playing that on the 3DS as well, because there are ways of doing that if you hack your 3DS, which is very, very easy to do these days. So I'm playing Metroid Fusion on there and really enjoying that too. So I'm suddenly playing with the 3DS again after not having used one for a couple of years, and having a lot of fun with it. That's what's making me happy.
Man, I really want to play that Metroid Fusion, but I I have to actually play it on a Game Boy Advance. I think I have to dig it out, and I'm about to go on a trip, which is what's making me happy this week. So apparently you can still play Metroid Fusion if you have a Wii U, but that's the most recent thing that can play.
Yeah. With Metroid Dread coming out, the apparently Metroid Fusion jumped up to the top of the Wii U charts, which I don't know what it takes to jump up to the top of the Wii U charts. Probably means get one sale a week or something. But it's wild to me that Nintendo still hasn't figured out a way to make those GBA games available on the Switch. They were on the Wii U. Everything else is getting ported from the Wii U, but they don't have a strategy in place for this, I guess. And with Metroid Dread coming out, like the game that precedes it is like totally not available unless you want to do something hacky or piratey, which is wild to me. Or unless you have a Wii U around still, which who does at this point? Mine is definitely in a box.
Man, you are just roasting the Wii U left and right.
I mean, come on.
The marketplace roasted the Wii U.
Exactly.
Nobody wanted it. Well, so that's back to what's making me happy this week is I'm taking my Wii U out of the closet and I'm taking it with me on a trip. I'm going on vacation.
Yes.
This is going to be the last time you guys hear me for an episode or two. Yeah, I actually am. This is I'm very excited about this.
Are you actually taking your Wii U?
He means he's actually going on a vacation.
No, I'm not actually. I don't have a Wii U.
All right.
He's going to have to borrow my Wii U.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Mexico. I'm going to this is exciting. In 2019, I won a award at work that they were going to send everyone on this company retreat, and the company retreat was scheduled for 2020, so it never happened. And I was left with a voucher that I am now very excited to use. So I am spending I basically am taking a free, almost week-long trip to a resort in Punta Mita.
And that's so much better because you don't have to go with coworkers. Sorry, I do love my coworkers. If any of them are listening,
I love my coworkers, but just going by myself is awesome. And not by myself. I'm taking my wife. We're leaving my son with his grandma, and we are just gonna soak up some sun. And so that's gonna be making me happy this week. Next week,
good.
Who knows how many weeks?
I'm a little disappointed that you're not bringing your microphone. Yeah, a little disappointed you're not bringing your microphone to record with us while you're out at your wonderful beach vacay with your wife, but I get it. That's fine.
Oh, you never know. Maybe I'll Zoom you guys and we'll have some updates.
Don't you dare go enjoy your vacation. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a blast. I'm really, really jealous.
Oh, the other thing that's making me happy this week is this coming Friday is the pre-release for the new Magic the Gathering set.
How did I know he was about to bring up Magic the Gathering?
Twice this episode.
On Dungeons and Dragons. This is the new set, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms.
This is a double ding for Shane.
Ding.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go next because Shane, I had two things that I wanted to talk about, and you have touched on both of them already. So I just got back from a trip. Me and the fam hopped in the car, drove 14 hours to Denver, Colorado, and spent almost a week out there, did a hike, went to just above the tree line or just about at the tree line, so 12,000-ish feet. The air is thin. It was terrible, and it was awesome. So definitely... typically a little bit of an indoor kid, but my favorite vacation is getting out and doing things like that. So, did a wonderful hike with some friends and family, and it was just so nice. And then another thing I was going to say that's making me happy is we're recording this on a Tuesday night. Thursday night, I am playing live D&D. We are getting our group together for the first time in a long time. Actually, even more so because even when we were playing live before the pandemic, one of our guys lived in LA, and we would play live at our house.
But with a computer?
And like Arrested Development guy on an iPad thing, we would actually take my iMac, set it on the edge of the table, and he would zoom in, and like we would have the camera angled so you could see we do very light mapping and miniature stuff, and like so he could see that and he would play. But in between then and now, he has actually moved to St. Louis, and so this upcoming Thursday night have the first live every party member together because we're all vaccinated and have been for a little while now, and we're getting everyone together and we're going to play some live D&D. I am expecting maybe 1 hour of actual D&D and the rest of the time just goofs end to end, and I'm looking forward to it. So get vaccinated and hang out with your friends. That. Yeah, it's nice. Great. Yeah.
Well, I am not going anywhere, but we did import some of my friends from Boston came to visit us for July 4th weekend. And one of them, Laura, who was on our Heaven's Vault episode, and her husband. And we went to the cloisters. We ate tacos, a lot of
love a
just
taco.
Chilling in gardens. It was quite lovely. And then I became an indoor kid again because I was exhausted by 4 days of socialization.
Yes.
And I did what I always do, which is check the calendar. Oh, it's about a month for the Olympics. It is time for me to watch way too much gymnastics coverage again. If anybody
I didn't know you were an Olympic person.
I am. I really do like individual performance sports that have to suddenly act like a team when it comes to the Olympics. I think it's a fascinating dynamic when everyone competes for 4 years against each other and then they have to act like a team suddenly for 1 month. It just causes
so you're in it for
trouble.
the drama. Yeah,
I'm in it for the drama, but there's also all these weird niche regulations that mean that there's drama on a team level and drama on an individual level. For example, the inexplicable rule, I get it, that every country can only get 3 people competing or 2 people can only compete for a medal in an individual event at the Olympics. So even if the United States is the top 5 people on beam, which they don't, they would, only 2 could be in medal contention. So it means that there's a lot of drama because everyone's basically going to compete against each other on vault. Also, the Russians can't stay on the beam. So if the Russians stay on the beam, they get a silver medal, but they're going to fall off the beam. So it's going to be great.
Classic Russians.
Well, 50-50. They stay on the beam, they win. That's the drama. But I love niche drama, and I love watching people who are so good at their sport. I watch the college gymnastics. I watch gymnastics occasionally. I watch figure skating in the off season too, but suddenly everyone cares. And so all the drama comes out. And I'm not talking about the serious drama because U.S. gymnastics has plenty of serious drama too. Don't want to underplay that. I'm talking about the drama of a person who was the alternate for an Olympics for 4 years ago, got really, really mad, went to college, came back, and then almost got named alternate again. I was just like, oh, ouch. She is...
I'm kind of into this kind of drama, and I think you're right. What gymnastics needs, I always think the cure for bad drama is more drama.
Oh, yeah. So there was bad drama, and now there's fun drama.
Please, when it's getting highly dramatic, please just let me know in the Discord, and I will try and tune in and catch as much of the sweet gymnastics drama as I can.
46-year-old gymnast who's in medal contention for the vault. She's on her 8th Olympics.
Get it.
And she's still going to maybe...
Get it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. She won a gold when she was 19, and she's still competing.
Yeah, why stop?
Oksana, we stand a legend. So I'm very happy that suddenly all of this esoteric trivia I've collected in the background over 4 years or 5 years this year will matter. I'm relevant again, guys. Or in a week I will be.
Yay.
That's what's making me happy. Also, the documentary Golden, The Journey of the USA Elite Athletes on Peacock is very good if you are trying to catch up on the drama. You get to see everyone fall off in the national competition. Like, there was a competition that happened in January where everyone just ate it. And
see, now that's
and all these people
lost me with a lot of this, but
USA is like could fall 3 or 4 times and would still win a gold medal. They actually all did that in January, and everyone panicked, and it was great.
Does everyone else just suck? Like,
no, they're just Simone Biles is just so much harder than everybody else, and then Suni Lee, who's the second best, is also the one.
Everyone was
crazy.
Everyone was going crazy because one of the what do they call them? Trials or whatever you're just talking about, the like pre-events was in St. Louis, and Simone Biles was here and was just like hanging out, running around, eating St. Louis pizza and loving it. And so we're like, yeah, come and hang out more, Simone.
She had a bad day too and messed up like 4 times and still won against everybody else by almost 3 points. So she is going to be just fine.
Great.
So she might get something named after her on every single. You have to do something for the first time at the Olympics to get it named after you. That's the rule in gymnastics. And she is going to get her 4th thing named after her. And if she just does something crazy on the beam, she'll have something in every apparatus.
Cool.
So that's what I'm on the watch for. Is like, is Simone just going to like step on the beam, do something stupid, and then be like, I'm done. Yeah. So yeah. Gymnastics.
Well, I think it's hard to follow gymnastics.
It is. It's impossible to follow.
Well, Shane did the intro. And so I'm reclaiming the throne, and I'm going to do the outro.
Very white style.
I didn't say you could do the outro just to act like it was some sort of victory over me.
Down with the proletariat.
Listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, where you'll find our contact form. You'll find that's a good way to drop us a line and let us know what games you think are good for the show. You can also find us on all of the podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts and all of the others. We'd love it if you'd leave us a review. Now would be a great time to do that. We haven't had one in a little while, and it always brightens our day and helps people find the show. You can also find us on Twitter at _shortgame. And of course, you can find us on Patreon, www.patreon.com/theshortgame. And there's a couple of things going on the Patreon right now. As I mentioned earlier, right now we have a poll running to decide on some future games that are being covered. So we've got a nice list up there. We've also begun doing early release of episodes for patrons exclusively. So if that is something that you would like, if you want to get the episodes a day or 2 or 3 early, you can get in on that. And you get a nice podcast feed that's custom just for you. And also, every patron gets access to our Discord, which is where we talk about the show and plan episodes, chit chat about what we're playing. If you want to share stories of the Griftlands with us, we're still talking about it there, and we'll be talking about upcoming games too. So join us there, please. And you can find me on Twitter at Raygan K. That's RAYGANK. Laura, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Laura Jane Ash.
Nate, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Nate STL.
Shane, where can people find you?
On Twitter at 8BitShane.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is your spoiler break.
So there's not much I really wanted to get into after the Spoiler Blake. Spoiler Blake? Do we guys need to... Is that our new mascot for the Spoiler Break? Spoiler Blake.
Hey, kids, it's me.
Pick on Spoiler Blake. He's doing his best.
Hey, it's me, Spoiler Blake. I don't get to do character work on this show very often.
I got it by always having the spoilers.
Get out of here, Spoiler Blake.
Listeners, for context, we are recording about an hour and a half later than we normally do because
Yep.
You know,
this
Spoiler
is the result.
Blake. Spoiler Blake's a good guy, but watching movies with him, it's a real pain in the ass.
he's all right. So anyway, the thing that really I wanted to talk about from the back half of the main story of the game and really through to the end is just my favorite character. It's a character named Ulu or Olu. Did either of you choose to work for Olu on day 2?
Oh,
Ulo.
no.
Priest guy?
Oolo. Olo is is from the Admiralty, and on day two for
I did not
Sal's
work
story,
for-
you pick between 2 different factions that you're going to be doing missions for, because the main structure of that whole story is getting to fight Cascio at an auction that's at the very end of the game. And you can get there by siding either with the Spree or with the Admiralty. And if you side with the Spree, you're working for the leader of the Spree named Nadan. And if you side with the Admiralty, you're working for Ulo. I'm going to pronounce that different every time. Ulo is one of those bug-eyed aliens, the Kradeshi, and a really cool character, in my opinion. She is a intelligence officer who is also just kind of very self-interested, but just charming, and I thought really fun and well written, and gets you, kind of opens a lot of doors for you as a character, because working for the Admiralty, you get to do a lot of different stuff. And the thing that really killed me was, this was that run that I was talking about where my deck basically got turned off by one of the Banes. And I managed to kind of claw my way back by doing some of the extra missions for Olo. And I also just really liked that. But then when I got to the end, Ulu sent me on one mission where I was supposed to not kill somebody, and I wound up kind of pissing them off and had to kill them, or I would have been killed.
Yeah.
And so I didn't fail the mission, but it was not the best outcome. And that kind of lost me Olo's help on the final boss. So that was kind of cool in 2 different ways. That was me failing, but first off, I love games that let you fail forward. You fuck up and you can keep going, but with a cost. That's great.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it set you up for a little bit of a disadvantage in the final boss, and then the final boss, it turns out, had a power that Cascio is I say final boss. Cascio is the person you're trying to get revenge on. And when you confront Cascio at the auction, she had a hologram belt that made like triple holograms, where you didn't know whether you were hitting one that was real or fake. And that completely wrecked me. I had a really strong deck, but it was all like single target damage. And that ability also really messed me up. And then what I found out going back is that if you get Olo to help you in the final battle, which I lost, but I didn't know what it would have gotten me. What it would have gotten me is a maneuver that it adds to the deck that attacks all enemies and applies wound to them. But attacks all enemies is important because that would have gotten rid of the holograms. So the fact that there's this interplay back and forth, like I this whole story of me finishing that game is interwoven with both the mechanics and the story and the characters that I liked. I thought it was really a nice tangle. This game feels like someone took a shovel full of game mechanics and like story beats and just like tossed them all together and just like ran them through a sieve to see what would stick. And that was
it's
really
like
cool.
a dark fudge parfait.
Yeah. I'm kind of off my metaphor game today. It's all either food or I don't know what.
Maybe it's a brittle. Brittles have a lot of ingredients.
It's a brittle.
It's funny, Shane, your experience is so different than mine because so I ended up working for Nadan. And Nadan, I ended up really liking the character. And by the end, it's like Nadan's story arc is really cool. So I really liked it. And Olo or Ulo or whatever, ends up being critical to the storyline as well. However, I had to kill Olo for Nadan because Ulo had betrayed Nadan in the past. So I ended up kidnapping Ulo's like brother or something like that, and it was a whole thing, was getting Ulo alone so that you could kill Ulo. So I killed Ulo, and then my fight with Casio, it was weird because there was a moment where there was like a whole band of guards, and I had a choice of either confront them myself, have Nadaan like distract them, or have Nadaan try to go around them. And I did do Nadaan distract them. And then that led to, with my fight with Casio, he was like, I'm too tired from that last fight, so I can't join you. So he was not a member of my party in the fight. However, I still had a card that was inserted into my deck for the fight that was Call on Nadaan, and it only had 3 uses. And he would basically run in and stab Casio for like 10 damage and leave, which I imagine was like a consolation prize, basically. Like, I got some damage from Nadaan, but not like his actual presence in the fight, which would have meant he was taking an action on every turn. But I did not even have a triple. There was no triple element to Casio. It was all just a one-on-one fight from the beginning. And I don't know what would make that different. I don't know why she was a version of a fight for you and not for me. I know I basically like got the jump on her at the auction because I like hid and waited, and maybe that like she, I don't know, didn't have the chance to turn it on or something like that. But like the Casio fight was not the most challenging fight for me. The most challenging fight for me was I had a mission where I had to go and get something from a boat that was being held in harbor that was basically quarantined, and went to get the item from the boat, and there was the Admiralty and like a spree person fighting over who was going to get to, like, they basically wanted the boat out of quarantine, and Admiralty's like, no, you can't. And so I had a bunch of different options, and I chose the option of grab the box and run. And, I knew something stupid, so that's not going to go as I'd hoped for. But I'll tell you what, the outcome I got was not what I was expecting, which is I went to grab the box and run, and it like provoked a sea monster. And my like end of day 3 boss fight was this massive monster that took all of my resources. There's a bunch of those like use once and destroy or use twice and destroy item cards that I kind of like stockpiled. I basically burnt like my entire thing killing this sea monster. And I was like, I feel like I might have chose grab the box and run. I feel like gave me the worst possible outcome, and I really thought I was going to lose right then and there, but I somehow managed to fight him. But I bet every other option would have had me fighting just like one of those people. And this thing had like 300 HP, which was 3 times as much as anyone else had. So I think both of our different experiences, though, just go to show like the extreme differences in how this game can go for people. Even our boss fights were super different, and that's surprising because it's the same boss. Like all the different roads lead to Casio.
Yeah, and I can't wait to finally beat it, see some of those different endings, really master some of the more of those mechanics, and maybe play out some of the other characters. But that's not how we live our lives here on the Short Game. We are always on to the next game because we play a game a week. And
this
so
is
I'm
not the
already
Finish the Game podcast.
No. Well, it is officially the Finish the Game podcast, but not every game is short enough.
That is true.
To be completed in an evening or a long weekend or whatever the hell time frame we say is a short game.
As I said, I don't think given it's a deck building game, I feel like I could pick this up in a month and I wouldn't really have lost a lot of knowledge. I mean, the mechanics are the same and the cards all have the mechanics on it. So I think I'll be able to actually pick up and play this in the future, as opposed to other games, which I try to put my hands on the keyboard and I do not remember how to shoot or move.
Yeah, the game tutorializes. Well, it actually doesn't tutorialize that well, but the the card mechanics are always available. You can hold for Switch, it's right trigger and it'll pull up like what everything on the card does, and that's super helpful. So yeah, you can totally pick it up.
Yep. I think it's a very accessible game despite its incredible complexity, and I definitely want to go back to it, and I will be going back to it. And we'll see how it goes. I think that third character is pretty cool. He's one of those bug-eyed alien dudes.
One of the Spark Barons, right?
His power is all based on around him getting drunk.
Yeah.
So
I'm really enjoying the second character's story. I think I'm actually even enjoying it more than Sal's story, and I really enjoyed Sal's story. So I'm looking forward to seeing all the characters. Sometime over the next 6 months, I'll chip away at completing this game. I still find time to play Slay the Spire here and there, and I think this might fill that spot for a little bit. So. Well, anyway, I think that's probably enough for this episode. So thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thanks to the listeners who stuck it out this far. We already did our outro, so you're getting a special goodbye. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. If you play this game and are on our Discord, please talk to us about it, because I feel like it's like 8 more hours to talk about this game. But
please
for this
talk
episode,
about it, because I went to Reddit to try to talk to people about it, and all of the top posts are just memes, which is fine. But I wanted to chat with people about cards, and it's just
it's been in early access for too long for Reddit to be valuable. So our Discord, we need you. So
even if you do just want to send us the memes, shitpost away.
That's true.
Yeah.
Adios, folks.
Bye.